Britain's next property nightmare.
I'm in charge £26,364. This is talking monopoly money.
With a recession, buying a house seems harder than ever. 3 million of us have opted for often cheaper properties, many of them leasehold flats.
It was something new nobody's lived in. It was very, very exciting.
We are going to show you how the owners of these properties could be losing out. And we are talking about so much more than just a few quid.
You're looking at £700 million worth of expenditure that could be unnecessary.
Sales down, values flatlining, yet some property companies are still making money. How? Well, one answer, managing leasehold flats. Homeowners now pay £2.5 billion in service charges every year. But according to some of the leaseholders we've spoken to, the system is deeply flawed and open to exploitation. Buying leasehold means you buy the right only to occupy a property for a certain period of time, usually around 100 years. However, you still have a landlord, the freeholder, who owns the property outright. It's you, the leaseholder, who has to pay service charges and maintenance costs. Although most leases say your landlord decides what needs doing and who does it. Rona Barretto bought her one-bedroom flat in Hounslow almost 15 years ago.
I lived here since '98. The flat, when I purchased it, was advertised as a luxury flat, something new nobody's lived in. It was very, very exciting.
As one of 70 leaseholders in the block, Rona's problems began when her service charge. Tonight on Channel 4 Dispatches, we investigate Britain's next property nightmare. Tonight on Channel 4 Dispatches, we investigate Britain's next property nightmare.
I'm in charge £26,364. This is talking monopoly money. Monopoly money.
With a recession, buying a house seems harder than ever. 3 million of us have opted for often cheaper properties, many of them leasehold flats.
It was something new nobody's lived in. It was was very, very exciting.
We are going to show you how the owners of these properties could be Tonight on Channel 4 Dispatches, we investigate Britain's next property nightmare.
I mean, charged £26,364. This is talking monopoly money.
With the recession, buying a house seems harder than ever. 3 million of us have opted for often cheaper properties, many of them leasehold flats.
It was something new nobody's lived in. It was very, very exciting.
We are going to show you how the owners of these properties could be losing out. And we are talking about so much more than just a few quid.
You're looking at £700 million worth of expenditure that could be unnecessary.
Sales down, values flatlining, yet some property companies are still making money. How? Well, one answer, managing leasehold flats. Homeowners now pay £2.5 billion in service charges every year. But according to some of the leaseholders we've spoken to, the system is deeply flawed and open to exploitation. Buying leasehold means you buy the right only to occupy a property for a certain period of time, usually around 100 years. However, you still have a landlord, the freeholder, who owns the property outright. It's you, the leaseholder, who has to pay service charges and maintenance costs. Although most leases say your landlord decides what needs doing and who does it. Rona Barretto bought her one-bedroom flat in Hounslow almost 15 years ago.
I lived here since '98. The flat, when I purchased it, was advertised as a luxury flat, something new nobody's lived in. It was very, very exciting.
As one of 70 leaseholders in the block, Rona's problems began when her service charge started going up.
We started with $700 per year for the flat, but now I'm paying that almost for a quarter.
Is your service almost 4 times as good as it was when you first moved in?
Nowhere, anywhere better. It's much, much worse. It's much, much worse.
When did you buy the place?
1997.
Another leaseholder, Deepak Shah, is paying more than £3,500 a year in service charges, as his flat's bigger than Rona's.
Rungs are not in great shape. The carpet's a mess.
Despite the residents altogether paying £18,500 a year on general repairs, there's a distinct feeling of disrepair throughout the block.
Well, this is a great example of the poor service. I mean, that is a very dangerous piece of broken glass that could cause someone a serious injury, yet nothing's been done about it.
How long do you think it's been like that?
To be fair to say, it's been there for months.
This area, it's not clean, it's not tidy,
No.
it's not looked after.
No, that's exactly right.
There is a spare bed around this corner, though. If you ever get stuck, visitors knock on the door and you're not expecting them, there it is. Isn't that delightful?
And it's shocking to think that we're actually paying £2,500 a year for maintaining this.
Like many people all over the country, Rona has been hit by the recession, and she's finding the increase in service charges difficult to deal with.
For me at the moment, it's quite tough because I'm unemployed. So I am struggling with it. I had to, put it on my mortgage or borrow sometimes but I refuse to be forced out of here.
The Hounslow tenants have hired a leasehold consultant, James Butler. They're taking their case to the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal, a place where homeowners can challenge costs.
We don't dispute any landlord or managing agent's abilities to retain management fees. They must be fair, they must be reasonable. In this this scenario, we're arguing that they are neither fair nor reasonable.
At the tribunal, both sides will argue their case through barristers. Working out just what is reasonable can be a costly process, something many leaseholders can't afford. OM Property Management run the block, and they've been operating under new owners since earlier this year. Now, they told dispatchers they prioritise repairs that affect safety, and the rise in service charges is down to unpredictable costs such as vandalism. They add that they have tried to consult with customers and have offered payment plans to help spread costs. Disputes like this could be about to rise. Latest research estimates 40% of all new builds in England and Wales are now leasehold. This is Norwich, and a development called Earlham House, which residents say has suffered years of neglect.
Hey there, is it Rick?
Leaseholders like Rick Cousins have been paying almost £1,000 a year to their managing agent, but for what?
So how long have you lived here?
Oh, I've lived here for a touch over 3 years. It's been a shame to see nothing done to the building. It's slowly deteriorating. As you can see, a lot of the woodwork and the windows, a lot of empty flats, a lot of damp in a lot of the flats. I seem to be a lot luckier than most. Mine's not too bad.
Where are we off to now?
Martin Wilson, one of Rick's neighbours, showed me a leasehold flat that's become uninhabitable.
He hasn't been able to rent it out for the last 3 years because of the state of the roof.
Oh, right. So it's had a lot of water in it.
Yeah, basically, you've got the guttering going along here that has been leaking for ages. But also, this water goes all the way down to the flats below. The flat the other side has got a black wall all the way down.
A new freeholder bought the development last year and announced much-needed improvements. They are entitled to ask Rick and the other 23 leaseholders to pay their share of all reasonable costs. Rick's share of those estimated costs is nearly £6,000.
It's good that someone's coming in, they're going to improve the building. The way they seem to be working isn't inspiring me and filling me with confidence.
Rick is questioning how reasonable the estimated costs are, such as almost £200,000 for replacing this canopy and walkway.
Coming through here, you can see, again, there's parts of the building do need attention, but one piece of work they're planning to do is to replace the entire walkway that we're going to walk along now, and I believe the canopy above it. I think refurbish it, redecorate it. Certainly no need to rip this perfectly good piece of walkway under our feet.
Some of the leaseholders say the proposed works have not been explained to them properly. They say consultation periods seem to have closed before they even received notification, and invoices were demanded before any work was done. We asked leasehold consultant James Butler to look at the paperwork.
I think it is a fairly confusing bunch of documents. The Landlord and Tenant Acts basically lay out very, very clear instructions as to how, in different situations, leaseholders should be consulted. If the landlord does not clarify this consultation process, then they may come in for trouble much further down the line if this matter went before a tribunal.
Rick is in the same situation as many other leaseholders in the country. How does he know the work is necessary or his bill fair?
This June, Rick was sent a bill for more than £6,000 from a company named here as Earlham House Management. The company say leaseholders can nominate, quote, their choice of contractor. But in another letter, they say a company called Hackwood Homes will be undertaking the site development. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because have a quick crush around on the internet and you'll find find in Rick's case that the three organisations, owner, managing agent and contractor, all share exactly the same address.
They're all at the same company, they're keeping it in-house, so quite possibly the bills that they're sending and the quotes they've got for the work to be done may not be that competitive, I feel.
Belgold Properties told dispatchers they own 60 of the flats themselves in the development, and Hackwood Homes are refurbishing those units. Belgold say therefore they are sharing renovation costs affecting the whole site and are following the correct consultation procedure. They add all major works have been put out to competitive tenders. It's not against the law for landlords to choose companies they own to maintain and service leasehold properties. It can keep costs low. However, a recent report found problems with such arrangements have risen sharply. Charter Quay, a swanky development on the banks of the Thames in Surrey. For Marcus Perkins and his wife, this was a dream move.
It was just fantastic. We felt this is our place, we're in control of it, it's our home. It was wonderful.
That was until he was hit with a near doubling of his service charge.
Costs started to creep up, and then suddenly we had a whopper of an increase, which raised our bill from something like about 2,400 to 4,500. It was a huge increase.
Some of the 244 leaseholders claimed there were various services they didn't know they had to pay for.
No, we were being charged rents on this area here, which really should be part of the deal, quite frankly. We were paying extortionate fees for the CCTV, paying extortionate fees for the entry system. It seemed very clear to me in my lease, certainly, that it was part of the price of the apartment.
So in 2008, the residents began investigating. They say they discovered the freeholder had transferred management rights of the building to a company controlled by the Cengiz family trust. Vincent Cengiz and his brother Robert were once on the Sunday Times rich list, with an estimated worth of some £850 million. The Charter Quay residents spent 12 months digging around, and guess what? They discovered that the Cengiz family trust, through a complicated group of companies, controlled the CCTV, the intercom, and arranged insurance. The residents took their case to the Leasehold Tribunal.
They described the contracts that were put in place as onerous towards the tenants, ourselves.
The residents disputed their service charges through the LVT and High Court. Some of those charges were from before the Cengiz family trust bought into the property.
In cash terms, we managed to get £186,000 of overpaid service charges. And in total, from the two cases and other bits and pieces, it came to over £500,000.
The Cengiz family trust told us the residents should have asked lawyers to check the leases they signed with the original developers. They say they bought the connected companies after those firms had been appointed, and they have since sold all their interests in property management. A recent report found leaseholder complaints about service charges had risen 46% in the past 2 years alone.
Fundamentally, leaseholders are getting a bad deal because they're not getting cost-competitive services.
In certain situations, leaseholders can get together and exercise their right to manage their building. Management company Urban Owners claims this can be well worth your while.
The amounts we're talking about are staggering. People are saving, on average, 30% of their service charge expenditure. Our research says the average of that is £400 per leaseholder per year. £400. If you then take that there's roughly 1.8 million leaseholders in the UK, you're looking at £700 million worth of expenditure that could be unnecessary.
Coming up, it's not just private landlords people are complaining about. We meet the leaseholders overcharged £100,000 by their own council.
I don't know if they're aware or if they just don't care. They just want their money.
Dispatches is investigating how some leasehold homeowners are being hit with unfair charges.
But it would seem it's not just private landlords who are piling on excessive costs. Your local council could be in on the act too.
Jackie Domican's family have lived on the Tremlett Grove estate in North London since 1969.
My mum and dad moved in here when it was brand new 43 years ago. I lived here as well until I got married 18 years ago. So it's a family home.
And then you decided to buy it?
Yeah, after my dad died, we tried to help my mum out and said we'd buy it for her. Or help her to buy it.
Jackie bought the council flat for her mum Mary under the Right to Buy scheme in 2001. 2 years ago, the council, who was now their freeholder, decided to carry out repairs to the block. Each leaseholder has to pay their share of the bill. In this case, well, brace yourselves.
She's been landed with a bill for £28,000. She's 80 years old. She's only got her pension. How's she supposed to pay that?
Not being able to meet repayments means Mary could be forced to sell back to the council.
Well, it sent her blood pressure sky high, as you can imagine, but it's also... She can't understand, really. How can you get a bill for that much money without some warning?
Jackie decided to fight back. Along with fellow leaseholder Judy Granville, they challenged the council legal team at the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal.
There was this, Goliath sitting opposite us, who've dealt with these things before, and I didn't know at that point whether we were going to go ahead or what.
No, whether it would be worth it, whether you could fight these people. You wouldn't know.
But after taking legal advice, 6 leaseholders found something seriously wrong with the council's assessment.
What they had done is surveyed the worst of the blocks on the estate, and they based their decision to replace all of the roofs and all of the windows on that building, which is shocking in the first place.
Without even inspecting the roof, the council spent £111,112 on replacing it. The tribunal reduced this to just £25,000. And the £149,543 on windows was cut to just 10 grand. In total, the council spend on the estate was found to be more than £1 million too high.
It just instills in you total cynicism. The roof didn't have to be replaced, the windows don't have to be replaced. Asbestos across the whole estate didn't have to be replaced. So why? You have to ask why.
Islington Council say most residents prefer to have asbestos removed, and they were following government guidance that roofs should be replaced after 30 years. They told us they also consulted with leaseholders before bills were sent. Islington Council have had 2 appeals rejected, but are considering another.
Give me an idea of what it's done to her.
He's put her in very bad health.
Did she talk to you about it?
Sorry, can I have a minute?
Do you think the council are aware that these sorts of bills are creating clearly the anguish that is taking place in this flat today?
I don't know if they're aware or if they just don't care. They just want their money.
I perhaps wasn't expecting from that meeting the level of emotion that we saw from Jackie, but I suppose it isn't a surprise. She's worried for her mum. Her mum is elderly, She's ill, she's stressed, and she doesn't understand how she's going to cope with a bill for £28,500 from the council. That is one family that will be hoping that the local authority takes this matter no further.
Problem with local authorities is they are forced, and there is also a culture of wanting to or having to procure services on bulk. Now that leads to like Tremlett Grove, where if the roof is deemed to need replacing, let's say on an adjoining block or a block the other side of an estate, well, let's get all of the roofs done all at once. The problem is that the roofs on all the other blocks might not be a problem at all.
But Dispatches has also discovered another problem. Some councils have profit share deals with contractors. This is how it works. Firms are hired to maintain and repair local authority property. Once the contractor's profits pass a certain point, the council receives a share of what is made thereafter, sometimes up to 50%. Some say this system means leaseholders are paying over and above what repairs actually cost.
If you are being charged 100% of the bill, and your landlord, through a profit share agreement, is essentially only being charged 95%, then those charges are not legitimate, and we would be very happy challenging them in the LVT.
We sent freedom of information requests to every council in England and Wales. 10 confirm they've had profit share agreements with contractors who provide repairs or services to leasehold properties. None said they would directly reimburse their leaseholders, although some said money would be used for future repairs. Financial disputes with local authority freeholders could affect some of the 2 million people who have taken up the right to buy their council homes. These are the people who can least afford it, with the Financial Services Authority saying 1 in 22 are already facing repossession. Della Burns and her husband Robert have lived on the Monmouth House estate in Cwmbran since 1988.
We enjoy the local community because we go line dancing 3 times a week. We're very close to the shops, as you can see. It's marvellous in all winds and weather.
In 2003, they bought their flat from the council.
We knew there wouldn't be any money left for the children, so we decided that if we bought the flat, then at least we would have the flat to leave them, to share between the two of them.
4 years ago, the council passed control to the Bronafon Housing Association, who are now asking leaseholders to help pay for roof and window replacements.
It's only an estimated bill, and that is for £17,352, some odd pence. We knew when we took over the lease that we would be liable for repairs. I mean, yes, 1 or 2, 3,000, or even 3,000, 4,000 pounds, but not the large sums of money that we're all been asking to find.
Della says a solicitor did look at her lease, but the family didn't understand just how big the bills could be. She says her husband particularly is now really struggling.
It's been a nightmare. I mean, it really has, because it's made my husband ill. He's had a stroke through all the worry about it all.
Anne Loveland owns a bigger flat in Monmouth House, so she's being asked to pay even more.
I mean, charge £26,364. This is talking monopoly money. And they really do not accept the fact that we do have rights. We're not there just to be pushed about by them.
How are you?
Anne is turning to the local assembly member, Lynn Neagle, for help with what seems to be a real issue.
I think the overriding concern is the level of the charges and the fact that in some cases these charges are considerably more than people paid for their flats in the first place. A lot of these people are pensioners. We're living in difficult economic times. I think that there has to be a certain sensitivity to the kind of anxiety and stress that that's going to cause people.
Bronafon Housing Association told us they have carried out lengthy consultations with the leaseholders and will be sharing the costs. They say they recognise the financial difficulties of some and have offered a range of payment options.
I can't pay it. We had opted to pay for the £50 a month, but I have been told that the debt will be bigger by the time we die, and that as it's part of the estate, that our children could be liable for it. I can't leave my children with debt. No way.
The pressure of having to pay large bills is clearly having a profound effect on people like Della and Anne, along with all the other leaseholders I've met. I wanted to ask the Housing Minister why there wasn't greater regulation of the industry. What do you say to those councils that have overcharged on major works bills to the tune of £1 million?
Shame on you.
Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these councils are public bodies who have an absolute duty to all of their residents, and I think for them to be overcharging is absolutely shameful, and I'm very, very happy to be a part of naming, shaming, embarrassing, and ultimately I hope have them change their ways.
We've discovered that some local authorities have a profit share arrangement, but as far as we can work out, that money is not returned to the leaseholders.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that as the Housing Minister?
I think it's unforgivable. These kind of sweetheart deals, and particularly I feel very strongly where it's a local authority doing this kind of thing, they should have the interests of their tenants automatically at heart. I'm going to make sure that they understand the lease guidance that's out there. Perhaps there's a little bit of confusion that we can help them fully appreciate.
The time for further regulation is now, isn't it, Minister?
What I'd be concerned about doing is trying to introduce a law to deal with a tiny, tiny, tiny minority and at the same time introducing new costs for the vast majority. And let's not forget that...
Tiny, tiny minority? We're talking about overcharging of hundreds of millions of pounds, £700 million a year.
As we've covered, there are 3 million leaseholders.
£700 million sounds pretty significant to me.
First of all, we can't be...
Out of 3 million people?
First of all, we can't be sure about the robustness of that figure. But secondly, even if we assume
the only
that there's
figure we've got, you haven't got your own.
Let's not sort of go through a process of saying there's no problem there, because I absolutely believe there is a problem. As I say, 100% on the side of leaseholders. And I go further and say to, those who want to rip leaseholders off, you are on watch. I am looking at what's happening very, very carefully.
But while the Minister keeps watch, you might just want to look out for yourself. If you're thinking about buying leasehold, 2 simple tips. Find out exactly what you're signing up to and how much you may be expected to pay. If you already own leasehold and you think your bills are just too big, then you can visit our website to find out what you can do about it.